Prabhupada starts out by stating, punishment meted out by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is accepted by the devotee as the greatest mercy. If only we could imbibe this, wouldn't that be an amazing internal accomplishment for our life? If only we could embody, if only I could embody this principle that punishment, which means suffering that comes our way, which is a concomitant factor of being in this world due to the nature of the environment and due to the fact that we have previous negative karmas that we are all working through, that we are all working to put behind us and learn lessons from and purify. But what happens is that these punishments come, and instead of accepting them as the mercy of the Lord, we go, oh my God, why is this happening? And suffer and like try to figure ways out of it. And why is this happening? And I'm so disturbed. I'm so anxious. I'm so fearful. How will I overcome this? How will I get out of this situation? We've all experienced that. We've all experienced that. But Lord Chaitanya, he gives us this beautiful clue in the beautiful Shikshastakam, the 8 verses that the Supreme Lord left us. Trinada pisanichena torora pisahistana amanida manidena kirtaniya sadahari. That one who can tolerate this suffering, the reversals of life, without being disturbed, taking a straw between one's teeth. What does that mean? That one is not expecting necessarily that everything's going to go my way. If it does, great. But if not, I'm accepting that as the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that process, I'm not thinking myself important or worthy of anything special, any wonderful things to happen in my life. Yes, we want these things to happen, especially in relation to the service of the Lord. But the humble position is that whatever happens, my Lord, I accept that as your mercy. I take that, as Prabhupada said, that punishment as the greatest mercy. And that is the greatest challenge for each and every one of us, because we get, we go off the rails. I do all the time. And then I come back and realize, yes, no, this was for my benefit. It was Krishna wasn't setting me up for some type of punishment, defeat. Yes, it may be a punishment in terms of it may appear painful, just like Prabhupada uses that word punishment here. And in different purports in this Bali Maharaj escapades, the pastime of Bali Maharaj, Prabhupada says other very poignant things in this regard, which we can take to heart. Another purport, Prabhupada says, as described in this verse, hardly anyone could survive such a test. And isn't it that sometimes we're going through such painful situations? Like the world is in a very painful condition right now, and we've all been affected by it. But whether it's this or that, whether it's COVID-19 84 or whatever it may be, there's suffering in this world. So these are tests. And Prabhupada says, hardly anyone could survive such a test, but for the future glorification of Bali Maharaj, one of the great Mahajans, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not only tested him, but gave him the strength to overcome the adversity. This is the key. The Lord is so kind to his devotee, Prabhupada says here, that when severely testing him, the Lord gives him or her the necessary strength to be tolerant and continue to remain a glorious devotee. So Krishna, he is testing us, but with that test, he is giving us the requisite strength. Our job is to have faith. Have that faith that the strength to overcome will be there. There's a prayer that I could say, an affirmation that I always come back to, that in all situations, in all challenges and difficulties, I will be victorious because Lord Krishna drives my chariot. In all activities and for the results, I depend upon the Lord. I can do all things through Lord Shri Guru and Gauranga, who empower me and protect me. So these are powerful affirmations of things that the Lord has already said and confirmed that we can access, that Krishna is always there. He's giving us strength to overcome, to surmount any obstacle, just like he's driving Arjuna's chariot. He's driving our chariot, each and every one of us. Doesn't matter if we're new devotee, old devotee, doesn't matter. We are very dear to the Lord, each and every one of us who's even chanted once his holy name. Krishna was speaking to Arjuna, and he said, even if one has chanted my name once, even in indifference, completely indifferently, just in passing, not even with devotion, that person will always remain in my heart, and I will never forget such a person. Just imagine the magnanimity of the Lord. Person once chants his name, Krishna says, that person will remain forever in my heart, and I will never forget such a person. What to speak of the devotees here who are dedicating their lives. Krishna is with us at all times, always giving us strength and help. Prabhupada goes on in another purport, he says, in this verse, the words siddhamapina muhyati are very important. A devotee is sometimes put into adversity while executing devotional service. In adversity, everyone laments and becomes aggrieved. We all experience this. Oh my God, what's going on? It's so painful, so much anxiety. It doesn't seem like I'm ever going to get out of this. But Prabhupada goes on to say, but by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a devotee, even in the worst condition, can understand that he is going through a severe examination by the personality of Godhead. Bali Maharaj passed all such examinations, as explained in the following verses. So these tests that we go through, these are examinations. And it's not uncommon that in all great religious scriptures, I'm going to refer to a few biblical passages in this regard, which shed some light on this. This is a concomitant factor of the human experience when it's imbued with faith, that in spite of the difficulties of the world, I'm going to hold on tightly to the lotus feet of my Lord and understand that he is always with me. Krishna says, one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to such a person, nor is he ever lost to me. In all your activities and for their results, just depend upon me and become my devotee. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So that's our job somehow in these situations, to hold on tightly, know that Krishna is there at every moment with us. And he's giving us the requisite intelligence and strength to overcome. If we can't access that immediately, we have patience, we're tolerant like the tree, and we're awaiting the mercy of the Lord. States in Nectar of Devotion that one who executes his life in such a way, tolerating the sufferings of one's past misdeeds, simply depending upon the mercy of the Lord, such a person will soon enter back into the kingdom of the Lord, into Vaikuntha. It's an eligible candidate for liberation. So in the Bible, some very beautiful verses. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, because consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. And this is consider it joy when we face trials. Who can do that? It's very challenging. But if we could shift our paradigm when challenges come, we said, oh, this is Krishna coming to us. This is my spiritual master coming to me. Goes on, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may become mature and complete, not lacking anything. How do we become mature and complete? It's not when everything is easy. How do we become empowered? It's not by having an easy life in devotional service. No, it's by going through these tests, constant. They're like relentless tests that we all have to go through. But Krishna is doing that for our benefit. It's a loving test. Another verse, don't worry, but pray about everything, and you will receive the peace that surpasses all understanding. Don't worry, Krishna says. One who meditates exclusively on my transcendental form, such a person, I preserve what he has and I carry what you lack. We can remember Krishna's promises. Krishna doesn't make promises lightly to his devotees. He will always fulfill his promises. He will carry what we lack in difficulties. Another verse. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So these things, the Supreme Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, in other religious scriptures, he's giving us these simple yet profound indications of how we're to prosecute our lives. And in this verse, it's so very clear. Where am I here? Is this the fourth verse? 3. Hold on. Let me just move on to the next verse here. So Prabhupada is saying in this purport that he said, a devotee knows that the so-called punishment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is only his favor. So our job again is, how do we daily remind ourselves of that? Before we go to bed at night, when we get up in the morning, my feeling is that we should expect things, that there's going to come a time in our day when things aren't going to go our way. And we can prepare ourselves. We can prepare kind of emotionally, mentally, spiritually, while we're chanting our rounds, while we're contemplating our life, that when these challenges come, will I react out of fear and faithlessness, or will I respond with consciousness that Krishna is there guiding me and giving me strength? That's our challenge. And to the degree that we can do that, we will find that our life becomes so much more enriched. And we feel closer to Krishna, closer to our spiritual master, closer to Srila Prabhupada. We'll get so much more realization, so much more empowerment. Again, Prabhupada states over and over again in the Bhagavatam, this is really the test of advancement in devotional life, our ability to see the reversals as the mercy of the Lord. Prabhupada goes on to say here that devotee knows that the so-called punishment by Krishna is only his favor to correct his devotee and bring him to the right path. So Krishna is bringing us to the right path. Yes, we're in the path of devotional service, but there's finer and finer gradations on that path of understanding of how our mental and emotional consciousness is. Are we seeing everything as the mercy of the Lord? Are we inspired by every difficulty that comes our way? If we're not on that fine path that we need to be on. It's very subtle, and it takes a cultivation of understanding of mind and spirit. Therefore, the punishment awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be compared to even the greatest benefit awarded by father, mother, anyone in the material world. So, everybody's seeking benefits of wealth, followers, success. But the benefit of this challenge, Prabhupada says, this punishment, it may be okay, that's kind of like a sadomasochistic way to see it, but no, it's, if we understand that everything Krishna does is for our benefit, then we'll feel so enlivened. Am I at that place? I am far from it. But just by hearing about it, it's so enlivening. I go, okay, yes, I want I want to be there. I want to be at that place. I want to cultivate that understanding. So I would like to open up the discussion to the devotees. But first, I want to open up the discussion to everyone here on this Zoom call about your realizations about how this facing adversity, tolerating adversity, finding the silver lining in adversity, something in your life that you have experienced, how Krishna has worked and how you have dealt with adversity and just your realizations about this. But before we do that, I always like to read one pastime of Srila Prabhupada. So we see the kind of magnificence of how the pure devotee deals with situations. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to read one kind of sweet pastime, and then I want to open it up to everyone, if that's okay. So this is Rameshwar speaking about an experience with Jadharani, who is a great devotee of Srila Prabhupada, one of our first artists. And she had been extremely sick. When Jadharani arrived in New Dwarka, one of our leading artists, when Prabhupada arrived in New Dwarka, one of our leading artists, Jadharani, had gotten very, very sick. She had gotten so sick that she couldn't even feed herself. We'd assigned a devotee to spoon feed her. She couldn't move. She couldn't walk. We didn't know what she had. She was in a wheelchair. She had been seeing a doctor that a number of devotees in 1976 had been going to. He was a well-known iridologist, a doctor that prescribes by examining your eyes for various conditions of the body. He had given Jadharani all kinds of medications and diet instructions. Prabhupada heard this and he wanted to see her. We carried her up the stairs to Prabhupada's quarters in her wheelchair. When we got to the top of the stairs, we helped her crawl out of her wheelchair. She literally had to crawl through the door of Prabhupada's sitting room and up to his desk. When Prabhupada saw Jadharani, he told her, "Come here." And we watched her crawl up to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada put his hand on her forehead, but it was much more than just a parent touching a child's forehead to see if they had fever. We are watching how intense this was. But Prabhupada was holding her head as if it was an instrument that was measuring all the disease in her body. He was diagnosing her. After a few minutes, Prabhupada looked at her and said, "You will be all right. And this doctor you are seeing, this Dr. Banish down in Laguna Beach, he is a quack." Jadharani crawled back through the sitting room to her wheelchair. We carried her down the stairs, and we were carrying her down the street and as we were carrying her down the street to her quarters, she was yelling at the top of her lungs, which she didn't have the strength to even whisper before. "Dr. Banish is a quack. Dr. Banish is a quack." She was announcing it to the world. Within 3 days, Jadharani was completely well. She was walking, talking, feeding herself, and she went back to painting. She had been cured. It was a miracle healthcare, like something out of the New Testament. That's exactly what happened. Srila Prabhupada had the ability to cure on every level imaginable. So that is our Srila Prabhupada, and he can cure us on every level imaginable of our material conditioning and our material disease, so that we, in this lifetime, can see Krishna and become empowered to preach his message. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to the assembled devotees and see gallery view and see if anybody would like to share some realizations they have in terms of the subject matter, something that they have gone through in their life, how they have dealt with adversity, just this whole topic of adversity being the mercy of the Lord. So would anybody like to share? Adi, you always have some incredible stories. Oop, hold on. Can you unmute yourself? I can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Certainly, in our experience, Krishna has given us our share of apparent setbacks, adversity, pain, token pain, mental and physical. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "You, you are the cause of your pleasure and pain." Prabhupada said, "This disease condition is caused by overeating and material anxiety and uncleanliness." So it's our own neglect, stepping outside, taking more than we need. That is usually we're trying to protect something that's not ours. And then there's anxiety. But when we throw our hands up like Draupadi and say, okay, Lord, or Bali Maharaj here, he's saying, take it all. I'm just here for you and I'm satisfied, to be in your arms, to be in your service. Devananda has this song. You probably heard it. You got more than you need. My God, what were you thinking? You got more than you need. Take a good look at yourself. I'm talking to myself here. You got more than you need. My God, what were you thinking? You got more than you need. Don't you know there's a price to pay? So we bring these crazy, distressful situations. I bring it on myself when I step outside of that narrow path, the straight and narrow of just engage in devotional service. We remember Bhagavatam years ago. He wrote to Srila Prabhupada, and he was in tremendous anxiety. And Prabhupada wrote back, I saw the letter. Prabhupada said, get up in the morning, bathe, chant your rounds, take a little prasadam. All you need is a little place to rest, nothing extravagant. And then, if there is some service to do, life is perfect. It's a simple life. Don't make it complicated. And this is, every time I step just a little bit up that path, Krishna gives me that slap, What are you doing? What was I thinking, right? Isn't it? Simple living, how to live a simple life in a complicated world. Mataji has this song. Don't you have that song in your repertoire?
I wrote that.
Yeah, you wrote that song.
How to live a life in a complicated world. It's
right.
Can't even remember.
Simple, stupid, that's what the army says. Keep it simple. Take your basics. Are there no earthly flats? Are the caves now empty? Are there no torn clothes on the street? I'm like, what? You're talking about wearing tree bark and sleeping under a tree. How can you do that in this day and age? But definitely we can keep our lives simple so that we have the time and the energy and the resources to push on Lord Chaitanya's wonderful mission with full strength. And we see his Prabhupada, such a simple life he had. Radhanath Swami, we see he just, for himself, he takes nothing. I remember in the Brahmacharya ashram in Columbus, when you live in the Brahmacharya ashram, everybody has their bedding, and at night they take it out and put it on the floor. I don't know if you remember Janakanath, really nice devotee. Remember Janakanath?
I don't.
In Columbus, he had this bedding. It was like we called it an antashesh. He had this elaborate cushions and pillows and mattresses and all these blankets and everything. Radhanath Swami had this one blanket, and he just used it. It was, you can see, your life is an open book. When you live with the devotees. What do you really? But of course, maybe that's what he needed. There's no problem with that. Everybody is different. But the principle of keeping our bodily maintenance simple so that we can serve keeps our life uncluttered and focused and gives us lots of elbow room to please Krishna. Anyway, maybe I'm talking too much. Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada, who set the example.
Thank you, Adi. You said something really beautiful. Well, you were mentioning Draupadi, and of course, I've seen you in your life. You've gone through multitudes of massively challenging situations, but you always came out on your feet as a soul surrendered to the will of the Lord, meditating on distributing the mercy of Krishna consciousness to the world out of compassion. And That's such a glorious quality that you have, and I pray that I can embody that as you have. There is you mentioned Draupadi, and this is her mood was, she was holding on. She was like, okay, I'm going to arrange a situation. I'm going to depend on my strength. What strength do we have against the insurmountable forces of the material energy? We don't have strength. When she finally gave it up to Krishna, my Lord, I'm fully yours. Just like was it last night or this morning? I think it was this morning. I was looking for something. No, it was last night, looking for different quotes on adversity. And this ad came up, and in the ad, it was an ad for some type of music meditation to go to sleep to. But there was a beautiful quote, and it really struck me as something that was quite Krishna conscious, really, that if you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. You let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. And if you let go completely, like Draupadi, right, you'll have complete peace. And it's just as at the peace that surpasses all understanding. That is the peace from totally seeing everything as the mercy of the Lord. And if we can pray to come to that platform, man, it's a beautiful, what's that Jimmy Stewart movie, the Christmas movie? What a Wonderful Life, right? What a wonderful life if we can come to that platform of everything, my Lord, is your mercy, and I'm simply fully depending upon you. It's an internal prayerful mood. So I want to hear from someone else. Anybody else? Any thoughts, realizations? All you out there in the peanut gallery? Anybody else? Feel free to jump in here. We have 10 minutes left. Karuna, Hare Krishna. Can somebody else share? Otherwise, I'm going to just sit here and look like a fool. Don't make me look like a fool.
Hare Krishna, Badarayan Prabhu. It's so wonderful to see you. We'll miss you. Wonderful, wonderful Krishna conscious class. Amazing. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Nothing really. I'm just trying to throw up words here. Go ahead, please.
I really liked your point how we should be inspired by difficulties. That's far out. Far out. I was thinking, yeah, well, this is coming from Krishna. Krishna is the boss. What can I do? But you took it further, being inspired by difficulties. So that's a great point. I like it. Thank you very much for this affirmation. Yeah. And then a quick comment. When we keep Srimad Bhagavatam open, when we keep our sadhana going, then all these difficulties that we may be going through, they all of a sudden start making sense. We see them as coming from Krishna when we keep the Bhagavatam open, keep the reading going. But when we keep CNN going or any other news outlet, when we keep that going,
especially
then there's no way. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Especially CNN. And,
well, I speak for hours on that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my comment. If we keep the reference right, if we keep Srimad Bhagavatam going in our life, then it all makes sense. If we keep something else going in our life, if we're hearing from other sources, then we get outraged, frustrated, and all that. So just a quick comment on that. Thank you very much for your class.
Thank you, Ananda Vihari. It's a beautiful point. Keeping the Srimad Bhagavatam open, which is kind of figurative, really. It's like the, Shastra Chaksus, being able to see through the eyes of Shastra. And that seeing through the eyes of Shastra, seeing through the eyes of Srila Prabhupada's purports. And that's what, to me, is keeping the Bhagavatam open. It's a beautiful analogy, really. Let's keep the Bhagavatam open in our life. How do we relate things? Because otherwise, as you said, if we tune into the material energy, which comes in the form of mass media, there is just like we're in the matrix of Maya. And the matrix of Maya, if we've seen the movie The Matrix, there's the blue pill, there's a red pill. Most people are doing the blue pill and surrendering to, yes, I'm the center of everything. I'm the enjoyer. This is what life is meant for. But I'm suffering miserably. The red pill is waking up that we're an eternal spiritual being, that we're meant to serve the Supreme Personality of God and live eternally in the spiritual realm, in complete happiness, Satchidananda, eternity knowledge, and real happiness, bliss. But there's also different aspects of the matrix of Maya. There's a massive, you could say, psyop conditioning of media in all different forms to condition us in different ways that aren't necessarily for our benefit, that are actually just the opposite. And, we have to be discerning to be able to see through that. Again, that's a whole nother subject matter, which I don't want to get into now, but it's going on in every level. And a devotee should understand how the material, just like it states in Ishopanishad, we should see how the material energy and the spiritual energy are working side by side. Why? So by understanding how you could say the enemy is working, the material energy, Maya, how the Maya is ensnaring everyone, and how that plays out in different aspects of the material realm, then we can see, okay, I see this. I'm not going to fall into this trap. I'm going to see things clearly. And that's keeping the Bhagavatam open. But it requires a very discerning intelligence in that regard, and behooves us all to cultivate that so we're not taken in by the propaganda machine, which is based on fear. Oh, COVID-19 84, fear, everything's falling apart, fear. No, Krishna has our back. Our spiritual master has given us the knowledge. He has our back. Our God brothers and God sisters are our support mechanism. They have our back. We have the holy name, which is our daily nourishment. The holy name has our back. And Radharani has our heart. So that's it. Everything else is just superfluous mind control. And that mind control, it's the mind is your greatest enemy control. It's the enemy. And we have to see it as such. Anybody else? Thank you, Nanda Bihari. Anybody else want to share? We have a few minutes left. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for a wonderful class. And that story about Srila Prabhupada, that was a little mind-blowing. I'd never heard that story before. So thank you so much. But I just wanted to reflect on something that Danyadhara Swami has said often. And when you started speaking, I thought of this little, I forget where he says it come from, but it says, when you think that God is digging a ditch to throw you in, actually he's digging a well to quench your thirst.
Oh yeah, that's actually from Rumi.
Oh, that's Rumi. Okay.
That comes from Rumi. Yeah, go ahead.
And I was just thinking that when you started speaking about that topic, I automatically thought of that. So it's something that I can always use reminder of. So I just wanted to thank you so much, because lately it's been one of those adverse times. So it was just good to hear this class today to remind me. So thank you so much.
And thank you for sharing that. We're all going through it, but we have the great benediction of as Ananda Bihari said, keeping the Bhagavatam open, the purports of Srila Prabhupada, like the great acharyas. Even Rumi, like here's that quote. Where is that right here? Where is that? Yes, when Providence seems to be digging a hole to throw us in, it is actually planning to quench our thirst by drawing water from the ground. That's Rumi. Rumi was a great Vaishnav. And Prabhupada says, this is a beautiful quote. Nonetheless, the living entities are constantly bewildered by this very same illusory energy. In his conditioned state, the living entity discovers many forms of word jugglery to get apparent liberation from the clutches of Maya, where we may try to do so many things to alleviate our suffering. But if he sincerely surrenders to Krishna by simply once saying, "My dear Lord Krishna, from this day on, I am yours," that's it. He at once gets out of the clutches of the material energy, from teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So, Krishna, I'm yours. Srila Prabhupada, I'm yours. My Guru Dev, I'm yours. So that's our mood. Thank you, Brajarani. Thank you, Jamuna Jai. Brajarani, share something with us.
Hare Krishna. This conversation actually is, because it's another way in which Krishna constantly reciprocates. It's an ongoing conversation. I was just talking to someone about this topic yesterday. So thank you. Like, this is his constant talking to us and through others, here, and the conversation just continues if we listen. So at my first pilgrimage to India with the Bhakti Center, one of the first things that Diana said when we first arrived is, think of this as, this is happening for me, not to me. And that, I think, has been my ongoing sort of meditation through my bhakti practice, is happening for me, not to me. And you said something today in that I think is another really sort of key to this, which is that we come to these situations, he puts us in these situations, he's going to give us the intelligence to get through these situations. In the moment, we tolerate. So that the intelligence may not actually be here. It might take him, it might, for whatever reason, as I go through this, maybe it's going to be 6 weeks before he gives me the intelligence, right? So how do I tolerate until then, knowing that he's there with me in this, and tolerate? Not be so hungry for the intelligence now, because that's again grasping, and it's not actually throwing your hands up and saying I surrender. So praying for the ability to tolerate, because I do have this knowledge that that everything he brings me to is because it is something I am going to grow from.
That's really beautiful, Brajarani. You said something that I think is a really succinct point, that the kind of realizations and the strength and everything comes, but the subtle distinction you made, which is awesome, is it comes when we pass the test of tolerating. Krishna's saying, okay, how are you going to deal with this? How are you going to deal with this? Are you going to like freak out and, call your mom, go have a drink, whatever, binge on a TV show, whatever it may be? No, are you going to just tolerate it and see it as my mercy? So that was a great subtle distinction, that the kind of the insights and the realizations and the Krishna speaking to you per se come when we embrace the tolerance. And thank you so much for that. Beautiful point. So it's 8 o'clock. I guess we're done here. I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to say a little something. And it's all Prabhupada's mercy. And may you guys have an awesome, blessed day in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. Hare Krishna.
May you go dancing joyfully through whatever Krishna sends today, grateful for whatever he's sending, and go on in your service.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you. I'm now down in Florida, somehow or another, in the Gainesville area, just a few blocks from the new Bhaktivedanta Institute, where Murli Gopal is my neighbor. So I'm kind of, and Brahma Tirtha, so I'm kind of, the Bhakti Center is coming, going with me wherever I go. So, all right, Hare Krishna, glories to Prabhupada, Jai Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar, Hari